Kelly, that new warning went out just a couple of hours ago, and the deadline is roughly 1 a.m. Eastern Time. While the clock counts down, watch and listen to what our live cameras have captured tonight in the dangerous border between Israel and Gaza. Those are Hamas rockets launched from a variety of locations, and that is also the sound of Israel's Iron Dome defense system shooting them down. Hamas even released some of its own video, reportedly showing just a few of the hundreds of rockets it has been raining down on America's best ally in the Middle East. All this as thousands of Israeli troops stand ready at this moment along the Gaza border for a possible ground invasion that some military officials say could be the only way to take apart that terror group Hamas's network of secret supply tunnels. Joining me now, KT McFarland, who's a Fox News national security analyst who held national security posts in the Nixon, Ford, and Reagan administrations, and Buck Sexton, who's a national security editor for theblaze.com and a former CIA officer. Thank you both for being here. And as you hear these warnings telling folks in this neighborhood outside of Gaza City to get out because the bombing is about to begin, 100,000 Palestinians, KT, I ask you whether we are on the brink of a ground invasion now.
We are certainly on the brink of some kind of a major barrage of an air attack against the missile sites, the rocket launchers in Gaza City. Whether it's an actual invasion on the ground, we'll have to see. If the Israelis can take out as much as they feel they need to do to degrade the Gaza facility, you know, the Hamas stockpiles, then they don't have to. They don't want to go in on the ground.
They don't want to, but what we're being told is that they have these tunnels and that they're exploiting, the Palestinians, Hamas are exploiting these tunnels, and Israel is really left with very little choice but to go in on the ground, hence the tens of thousands of soldiers who are getting ready to do that, we're told, Buck.
Well, Hamas has made this decision somewhat easier for the Israelis because of the response to the ceasefire offer. If they had accepted the ceasefire, we wouldn't be talking about a ground invasion. They told Israel to pound sand. Exactly. We're only doing this now. We're only having this conversation because Hamas's response was to fire in hundreds more rockets into Israel, specifically going after the most densely populated areas that they could. And so now the Israelis are once again in a position where they would rather not go in on the ground. That's messier from a casualty perspective. It's also messier from an international relations and public affairs perspective. But they want to dismantle this terror network. Netanyahu says he's very serious about this. He says they will get the calm that they need. And I think that we should take him at his word. So unless there's a ceasefire, this is what's going to happen.
So they go into this negotiation brokered by Egypt, and Israel is saying, we'd like you to stop bombing us. And Hamas is saying, well, we would like you to stop existing. And one wonders how any negotiation can go forward.
There's no negotiation that can go forward. And the problem with it now is it will now start mounting with a lot of casualties. Why? Because the Palestinians, the Hamas, uses its people to protect its missiles. Israel uses its missiles to protect people, but Hamas uses people as human shields. So we will now start seeing civilian casualties because Hamas puts its rocket launchers, its military facilities, its arms depots in apartment buildings, in schools and hospitals. They want to have the big casualties because they want to play to the World Court of Public Opinion, say, see, look at all the terrible damage Israel's doing to us. Therefore, not only does Israel not have the right to exist, they're the aggressors, even though it was the Palestinians who attacked.
It is sick. And Buck, explain to the viewers how is this relevant to their lives? Obviously, there are a lot of Americans who watch very closely Israel and the Middle East, but how is this affecting lives here at home, safety here at home, and what role did we play in what's happening overseas tonight?
Well, it affects us for one because obviously a lot of Americans have family and friends who are in Israel, who are in the cities that are currently existing under this reign of terror, which is what's happening. They're specifically firing missiles that can't actually really be targeted, missiles that are just intended to fall on literally anybody in a populated area. This is how Hamas does business.
They don't care
if it hits an orphanage, if it hits a home for old ladies, Hamas thinks, great, we've committed the most atrocious thing we possibly can. It also, of course, affects us because we have Israel as our strongest ally in the Middle East, and the stability that we are hoping to once again bring back to the Middle East, or relative stability, I guess, under this administration has been pretty terrible. So there's a lot of reasons why I think we have to focus in on Hamas right now and try to get an understanding of the moral calculation that's at play. I mean, for one, the Israelis, as Katie pointed out, are trying to do the least damage they can to get this violence to stop. They just want this to end. But Hamas, in some sort of perverse reverse incentive, actually wants more casualties to occur among the Palestinians, because then they turn to the world and say, look at the big bad Israelis. Look what they do to us. So Israel wants casualties to end, to stop. They want peace and calm. Hamas wants more dead people, more women and children out on the streets being laid out for the cameras. And until they have had enough of that, they're not going to stop these rockets.
Was there any role for us to have played here, KT? You know, John Kerry tried to broker some sort of a peace process that failed miserably. Yeah. You know, he set an artificial deadline that they did not meet, and then, of course, that was the end of it. And, you know, there was a lot of questioning about whether he should have said, okay, 9 months from now, it better be done. Yeah, well, and 9 months came and went, and it wasn't done, and then we looked a little, you know,
it was a hopeless
ineffective
task anyway. What the United States needs to do is understand two things. If Israel ceases to exist, if Israel's now surrounded on every single side of Israel, it has an enemy. It has either Al-Qaeda or ISIS or Hamas or anybody. All those groups want to exterminate the state of Israel. The United States is potentially drawn into something like that, but I think more importantly, understand the only way you ultimately defeat radical Islam is starve them. Why? Because they have Arab oil money is fueling all sides of the fighting. I mean, it is the mother's milk of terrorism, and until we become energy independent, until we drive the price of oil down in the ground, these groups are going to use that money to attack Israel, to attack the United States, to attack each other.
Interesting. KT, thanks for being here. Bucky, too.
Thanks.
We'll stay on it.